So great to be with you again, Thomas Kissinger, and this will be Lessons from History, Part 10, actually talking about Augustine. So it'll be more on Augustine, Part 2, and reading from the book of Ilaria Ramelli, A Larger Hope, Universal Salvation from Christian Beginnings to Julian of Norwich. And we'll get into this in just a minute, picking up where we left off, but just getting some good feedback on the videos and the information we're putting out. Actually talked to a young man, a young pastor from Kentucky just yesterday, and he messaged me and approached me and just said he was intrigued by the videos, especially the information about the early church fathers, and was really surprised to even hear that even initially Augustine was a supporter of the ultimate restoration of all things before he changed his mind and turned the other way. But it was just really good to talk to him. And that's what it's all about for me, is the networking, getting the word out. And he was just really excited, passionate, fired up about the ultimate restoration of all things, and actually the assembling of his particular church in Kentucky where he is, and just getting together and telling people about it and going forward with it. He was just really excited, and it was really good to talk to him. It was a blessing. So we will jump in where we left off. Augustine felt the need to disavow Origen's ideas in his later retractions. That all beings will return to the condition from which they fell should not be understood in the sense of Origen's theory, for those who will be punished in the eternal fire do not return to God, from whom they detach themselves. Given the closeness of Augustine's thought to Origen, at least in his anti-Manichaean phase, it is not surprising that a collection of texts from Origen's On First Principles has been ascribed to Augustine under the title On the Incarnation of the Logos to Inarius. Besides Carla Pullman, Istvan Perksel, and Michael Cameron, Daniel Hyde, too, explicitly accepts my reconstruction of Augustine as a supporter of apokatastasis in his anti-Manichaean phase. It is also of interest that a prominent 4th century Christian Neoplatonist such as Marius Victorinus exerted some influence on Augustine. For Victorinus is likely to have had a penchant for the apokatastasis theory. Marius Victorinus, a Platonist, born a pagan who converted to Christianity rather late in his life, becoming a Christian Platonist, composed a treatise against Arianism. He states that Jesus Christ will save all beings into life, and he details that Christ fulfilled the mystery so that all life in flesh filled with eternal light should return to heaven free from all corruption. Universal salvation performed by Christ is but a consequence of the creation performed by Christ Logos. The Logos was made all in all, generated all beings, and saved them. Victorinus seemed to have had some sympathy for apokatastasis, which is not surprising in a Christian Platonist who knew and esteemed Origen. This, and possibly also the influence of Ambrose and the transmission of Origen's texts, anthologies, quotations, and translations, as well as the metaphysical monistic need of Augustine's anti-Manichaean polemic, may go a little way to explaining Augustine's early openness to apokatastasis. Before leaving Augustine, it is worth mentioning a tantalizing glimpse he offers into the faith of ordinary believers on the issue of hell. Augustine comments that there are very many Christians who, on the basis of their beliefs about divine goodness and mercy, react with horror at the thought of eternal torment. While not wanting to build too much on this brief aside, it at least suggests that in Augustine's day, universalist belief was not some obscure idea hidden away in a few dark corners of the church. Augustine, however, did his part in ensuring that it would become such. And there you have it. And there's the history of it. As we have gone through this and brought you through this series so far, Lessons from History, how we went from the beginning, these early church fathers, Clement of Alexandria, Origen, Gregory of Nyssa, Theodore of Mopsuestia, and so on. And there were several of them that we named who all trumpeted the message of universal salvation through Jesus Christ, so much so that it was the predominant view of the day. It was the majority view of the day. And these early church fathers, they knew the Greek language. They could read it. They could write it. They understood the words, especially the words that spoke of punishment in the life to come or in the age to come, aion and aionios, that it referred to a punishment of limited duration for the purpose of correction, of or belonging to the ages of time. And it really made God out to be exactly who He said He was going to be, all in all. All in all, everything to everyone. And it made God out to be the Savior of the world through His Son, Jesus Christ, which in fact He is. But then this player comes along, this big-time influence down the line, Augustine, as we have brought out to you here. And Augustine, who did really not know the Greek language, could not read it, could not write it, was dealing with Latin translations. And he really thought in his heart of hearts that when it spoke of punishment, that it was eternal punishment or unending punishment or eternal torture that would never quit. And so he was convinced or became convinced that that's what it was. But he was at a great disadvantage because he didn't have the knowledge that the early church fathers did before him, because he didn't know Greek, as I said, couldn't read it, couldn't write it. And so he was at a disadvantage to understanding the original language and the original meaning of some of these words. But nevertheless, he goes on to become a very influential person in shaping the thought of people concerning God and the ultimate destiny of the human race. And so this teaching of eternal torture then begins to gain ground and take over. And so, wow, there you have it. There's the history of it. And it's been about, let's just say, approximately 1,500 years since this has taken place and since this has happened. So, yeah, that's why most of the people today believe in eternal hell and eternal torture and that punishment is never ending. But if you were to sit down with the majority of these people and you were to present the information to them about the early church fathers and about Augustine, they are completely ignorant of it. They've never even heard it. It has never even been introduced to them. So that's why we are here. The Bereans to the rescue. The Bereans search the scriptures daily to see whether or not what is being said is so or is correct. So we are delighted to bring this information to you that even Augustine in his day, before he began to swing the pendulum over to this thought of eternal torture, had to admit that very many Christians who on the basis of their beliefs about divine goodness and mercy react with horror at the thought of eternal torment.